right, and we're live. Week 2 of eTourism Summit 2020. Thank you all for being here. This is an exciting time, and we have an amazing panel, an amazing group today to talk about kind of the future of marketing planning. And I don't think we could have a better group to really guide us through this conversation of, how do we build a strategic plan, a marketing plan for 2021? And I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. I also really want to thank Laura Liggy, Senior Vice President for Miles Partnership, an amazing organization, amazing partner for eTourism Summit for many years. And Laura, thank you for agreeing to moderate today's episode of eTourism Summit 2020. And thanks again to you and the entire Miles team for your amazing partnership. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're so happy to be here today. Our session today, with scarcity comes clarity. I want to start out by sort of defining scarcity as we're talking about it here. I think you all are intimately familiar, those who are attending, with what scarcity means in your organization. But today, as we talk about it, scarcity really can refer to staff, your budget, perhaps your creative assets, or even your tourism product. So there's a lot of different elements that are coming into play as we talk about this today. So I think it's something that the panelists are keeping in mind as we go through this. The other thing that we know about DMOs is that they have been optimized. You all are optimized for year-over-year growth. It's something that we've been experiencing for a long time in this industry. And so in 2020, to sort of abruptly face the opposite of that has been something totally different for everyone to look at. And so I think hopefully today some of the conversations that we're having are enlightening to you, and that some of the things we share help your organization. But throughout this, please don't hesitate to jump into the chat or the Q&A feature to ask our panelists questions. I'll facilitate some of the Q&A during this, and then we'll have time at the end also to address questions. While you're in there, take a look at some of the handouts and things that are available as we're going through this. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Stacey. Each of our panelists are going to introduce themselves and then showcase how their creative has pivoted here in 2020. So we'll have a little time for each panelist to talk about it before we open our conversation. So with that, Stacey, I'm going to pass it to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stacey Mellman. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Visit Florida. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so great to be part of this conversation. So thank you to Laura and my friends at Connect who invited me to participate. I thought that I would share with you guys a little bit, a quick video of our domestic rebound campaign. And breaking news, it is launching today. So everyone at Visit Florida has a little bit of a launch day high, because it's so great to see our stuff that we've been working hard on over the past several months be out there in the market and have people see it. Like many of you, we had to put our existing playbook aside and start from scratch. That meant new strategy, new messaging, new audience targets, new creative. All of that stuff had to be developed when we developed this domestic rebound launch campaign. So just in case you're curious, the objective of this campaign was really to inspire travel to Florida by making people believe that vacations were worth taking. We felt that as the vacation state, one that is often synonymous with vacation, that it was on us to remind people about the value that they got from vacations. And we really wanted to offer people a momentary shift in their perspective so they could feel, remember, and long for that transformative power of a Florida vacation. So enjoy, and I'll take any feedback, although won't be making those changes because we're launching. Yay.
There you are. But what if instead you were here? That one letter difference changes everything. Here shifts your perspective. Because vacations are less about what you do and more about what they do to you. So give yourself over to the sounds of waves washing up on shore, to naps on the beach, to full days without shoes or shirts or worries. Say yes to something new. Try conch. Try the front row. Try this. When you do, something happens that's indescribable. You are more you. They are more them. You see each other in a brighter light, and the warmth of those moments never fades. Somehow, a vacation can take you to exactly where you need to be, which is, of course, here. That's the power of a Florida vacation.
Thank you, Stacey. As we're looking sort of around our virtual room here, I'm going to introduce Gathan, who's going to talk about what he has done and how they are addressing in their creative there in Lexington, the current situation. So Gathan, with that, I'm going to pass it to you.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And again, thanks to Connect and Will and the team for inviting us to be a part of this panel here. I'm going to play one of our shorter videos that we have. So in total, we shot about 10 videos that are part of our remarketing strategy. And so our messaging is all based around the concept of Lexington is real life. And so it's based around the fact, and you kind of saw really what Stacey was talking about too, it's based around the fact that all of us have been stuck in our homes over the past few months. We've kind of lost this connection to real world experiences. And so we have several videos, and our creative touches on horses, bourbon, and outdoors, which are 3 experiences that people can still do here in Lexington that are still socially distant. You can still be in small groups and still be responsible travel. And so with horses, bourbon, and the outdoors, it tells people that it's time to unplug and connect with something real. And so everything that we use is obviously a play on words. So for horses, the creative we talk about is making a stable connection. Obviously stable being connected to the horses, and then that connection piece being petting horses. For bourbon, we talk about time to unplug, and the creative there shows someone actually emptying out a barrel of bourbon, which is part of the bourbon experience that you get here. And then for outdoors, we talk about now streaming, and it references all the streaming that people have been doing with Netflix and Hulu, being stuck in your home. But we talk about experiencing a real stream by getting outdoors and onto the rivers of central Kentucky with a canoe or a kayak. And so the video that we're going to show here is one of our, I think it's a stable connection video that we're going to show here. And the cool part about that is we've also been focusing heavily on educating our locals. So we've got 2 locals that are actually in the video. One of them is a well-known local influencer, and then the other one is a well-known radio personality who also did all the voiceover for all 10 of our videos that we did as well. So we'll play that video for you now.
Feeling disconnected? Log off for good and get yourself into the connected? Log off for good and get yourself into the safe, wide open spaces of friendly central Kentucky for the kind of solid networking situation you really need. We've got bandwidth to spare. Lexington is real life. Plan your trip now at sharethelex.com.
Thanks, Gathan. I appreciate that. I see there are some comments in there complimenting the videos. So if there's a YouTube link, Gathan, you want to drop into the chat function so people can watch it, that'd be great. And with that, I will turn it to Justin if you want to talk about what you guys are doing in Denver and how you've approached this.
I do, but apparently I should let everyone know that I'm going to go to Florida and Lexington for my next 2 vacations. Very well done. This is the second spot of this campaign. The first had a bit more of a whimsical tone, and it was really contrasting that shared misery of quarantine with a Denver getaway. We launched our original campaign, recovery campaign, on June 29th. The spot you're going to see started just after Labor Day, so it's just been running for a few weeks here. But the second version, quarantine stopped being funny after the 4th month. And we didn't feel it was appropriate, but more to the point, as people started traveling again, they were looking for experiences that they felt could be safe and that they could travel confidently, which is some of the tones you'll see infused into this video. They wanted to know that the destination had their back. And overall, it was really important to us to maintain as much of the brand as possible. People know that they're going to be experiencing things a little bit differently these days, but we kind of have to stick with the brand that got us to this point and made us popular destinations to begin with. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about this as the session goes on. But for now, we can just sit back and watch the second of our 2 You Deserve Some Denver videos.
There's a lot more room to reunite, to relax, to rediscover, to explore the great outdoors, to stop and smell the roses. Here, the atmosphere is a little brighter, bigger, open for you to enjoy safely and try things in a whole new way. You deserve some fun in this amazing outdoor city. You deserve some Denver. Plan a getaway and find great hotel deals at visitdenver.com.
Thanks, Justin. I think if you could also drop that YouTube link into chat, that would be great, so that people can visit that themselves. So sort of moving into our conversation, I had read an article recently in The Atlantic, and some of you may have read it too, but it was really looking at everyone sort of remembering the where they were, the point when the pandemic really started to impact us and things got real, and that the point of the article was that there wouldn't really be a corresponding event on the other side, that it would be this gradual resumption of normalcy. So sort of thinking about that, how are each of you looking at timelines, maybe media prioritizations, even market selections based on that sort of gradual resumption? What are you doing sort of nowish, and how are you looking into 2021 knowing that there won't be that corresponding event? So I will, Justin, you're unmuted now. So if you want to start that conversation, it'd be great.
And I think as I start my comments, I'll ask Becca to bring up one of the scorecard examples. I want to share something just along the lines of what Laura's saying is about managing our timelines. And it also speaks to the fact that we have a bit of a kind of a social contract with our residents to make sure is that we do open up tourism, we're doing so safely. So Becca, is it possible to zoom in a little bit? If not, we can flip to the other one. This is really, I just want to talk about this from a top line, what you're looking at. You're looking at a market scorecard that we developed with our agency in Denver, Karsh-Hagen. And we knew that when it came time to putting media back in the market, we had to do so responsibly. And not to mention the fact that from a scarcity standpoint, we had much less dollars that we normally would during this time, which is our summer campaign, which is normally our largest campaign of the year. So both in an effort to be very efficient with our media dollars, but also to be responsible to the residents of Denver, we made the decision to develop this scorecard, which allowed us to bring a quantitative approach to the media markets where we would put money. Now, we went through the normal evaluation of whether or not it's a strong performer in driving visitation. We do that all the time. And there's a number of things that we look at when it comes to selecting our media markets, from past performance, website traffic, airlift, distance, the amount each market spends. And so we're long practiced at that, and we applied that model, but we knew that we had to do something different when it came to advertising in a COVID period. So I blanked out the names of the markets here just to be fair to those markets. And it's not necessarily confidential where we're advertising, but I figured a generic example would be better anyway. This is the condensed version of this scorecard that shows how we score each market based on its caseload, its is it cases rising, cases flat, cases decreasing, the rate of hospitalizations, how they are doing in their own reopening plans. There's actually a lot more that goes into this that I'll share in a second, but really what it got us to is each one of those, and a couple of other things that I just spared you guys for the sake of space, turns into a total weighted score. Some things weighted more, some things weighted less, and that weighted score then corresponded to a risk level, and that risk level corresponded to a recommendation whether to go into that market, to go into it with caution, or to suspend it. And these are the weekly results that I see on, these are the results that I see on a weekly basis. And so what you're not looking at, and we could see now, Beck, if you can go to the other one, that would be great, is each of those markets, we actually evaluate this not just on a market-wide basis, but on a county-by-county basis. And that's what you're looking at here. And this is a little bit more of an exploded view that shows the weightings and the scores, but we literally get down to the county level because in a lot of these states, the virus management happens on a county by county basis. So this is the same scorecard, but just in the wider view. And again, we really felt it was important to take this approach. And even as things started to mellow out a little bit in August, they've obviously picked back up again now, and a lot of places are seeing higher caseloads. So we are committed to doing the weekly management of this as long as this situation continues. And I can take any questions later or in the chat.
Thanks. I know you had talked when we were sort of prepping for this, you had talked about having some similar approach or some metrics that you were looking at as well. And Gaten, I think you have similar thoughts. Do either of you have any thoughts on how you're prioritizing which media channels you're going to go into, and how are you sort of phasing those in and or out as you're putting those prioritizations together?
Well, I'll answer that question, but then I also kind of want to jump onto the original question that you had. Last year, in May 2019, Visit Florida had a third of our budget cut. So at that time, we really shifted from any sort of traditional advertising, broadcast. All of the things that were more costly, we shifted those and really relooked at how we could be effective from just, pretty much digital and social. So that is for us a carryover on kind of our media approach for our COVID response. And as we look into 2021, especially because all of our, traveler behavior has shifted. So the way that we're reaching people is very different. Like Justin, we also created a scorecard looking very carefully at both the destination readiness. So could travelers have the kind of experience that we wanted to provide them and that we hope that they would have here, as well as where should we be marketing? Because obviously we want to protect our brand as much as possible. Florida was one of the states that had the summer surge, I think is what they're calling it, the Sunbelt summer surge, I think. And so, we have to balance that and make sure that the people that are receiving our marketing message are going to be open to it, and it's not going to do more damage to our brand. And so both that kind of traveler readiness and destination readiness, we were looking at balancing those on a scorecard. I will also say that back in February, we were so excited because we had an annual plan put together. We had a massive approach of what we were going to do, mapped out for the whole year. Our budget was aligned. We felt like really great. Our budget turns over on July 1st. And so we felt really great in February, like having a few more months to kind of solidify that plan. And obviously COVID hit. And so we had to make a really strong shift to just focus 100% on our rebound effort and protect whatever kind of market opportunities would be available, because we didn't know what was to come, as everybody is in the same boat. Now we're really looking, now that we've launched our rebound campaign, we're looking back at that annual plan to see what's still relevant, what's changed for those audience targets. Do we cut some of those? Do we shift the messaging? Do we combine them? Do we abandon it? I mean, right now it's just, like I said at the beginning, like we're throwing out our playbook and starting from scratch, which personally is sad because of all of the success that I feel like we had as a internal planning team. But at the same time, it necessitates a change.
Sure. And Gaten, would you add anything to your approach to that?
Yeah, I think I would add, I think, with the uncertainty going on, I mean, travelers are getting away for much shorter time frames now. So that booking window of, 1 week and under is more popular now than ever before. So just to give a little context, our budget is down 45% from year over year. I actually lost 2 staff members now. One retired and one got married and moved away. So we've had you talk about scarcity, like I'm feeling scarcity big time in the marketing team. But we actually are approaching our marketing plan in 4-month windows. So our first 4-month window was about to end here. We started July the 5th. Into the end of October. We shifted our audience to focus more on our locals, our in-state audience, and then visitors within the 200-mile radius. We prioritized just social, native advertising and search advertising. And then when we looked at the markets that we wanted to select, we looked at the visitor profile survey that we did a couple years ago. We looked at our arrivalist data that we always have. And then when our attractions started opening up, a lot of them were trying to capture where people were actually coming from. So we got some anecdotal information from our attractions. And then there's also this Midwest Coalition of Governors that was established as part of the COVID response. It was a state-by-state response to COVID. And that coalition is made up of Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. And so we felt like with us being part of that coalition, we kind of looked at those states because those governors were all kind of talking the same language. And so we kind of looked at that as a way for us to find a market to market to.
Yeah, I think one of the things that as a group we talked about, and Gaten, you were just teeing it up nicely, is are there new or different collaboration or partnership opportunities at a state level with the DMOs, or are there new partnerships that have sort of come to light that you see carrying forward sort of after COVID?
I think there's always been an opportunity with the state. It's a little bit difficult. I know everybody's state is different, right? But I think now most states have focused on road trips and in-state travel, which is what's happening here in Kentucky. So to me, the easiest option would be for any city is to reach out to the state and see if there is a co-op available because we're all strapped for money, right? So trying to figure out how we can make that money stretch a little bit further. But even if you don't, you can go to them and ask. And if they don't have something that you can be a part of, just making sure that your messaging is aligned with the state is only going to help amplify, the work that you're doing. So for us, if we're talking about in-state travel and getting around in our states doing it, it helps reinforce that because we're still talking to the same audience.
Yeah. Justin, I see your...
Yeah, it's kind of the same for us with working with the Colorado Tourism Office. They've been a little bit limited because they can't advertise outside of the state per some rules from the governor of Colorado, which is, smart under the circumstances because part of our responsible COVID management is to, we can't stop people from coming here and we wouldn't do that, but the state not being a party in that kind of makes sense. Where they're supporting us is messages about traveler safety and really just trying to get the residents comfortable with getting back out again. As I suspect with lots of states, we are our own best customer, and Denver gets more visitors from the other parts of Colorado than any other single state. So it does make sense to continue to keep that warm. We do some complimentary advertising in the rest of the state as well. So between what they're doing and more sort of promotional campaign that we're doing seems to be the right combination for now.
Yeah. Stacey, as the state tourism representative, what is your perspective on that?
Well, I would say that, obviously, like, I'm a glass half full person, and I think that that's the opportunity for collaboration and partnership is probably one of the best things that has come out of this crisis that we're all in, is that everybody is of a resource sharing mindset. And I think that even that I think more people are open to kind of seeing where does the Venn diagram overlap? Where are there opportunities for win-wins? That I think has just been one of the most unbelievable and positive things that has come out of this. From Visit Florida's perspective, we are doing things that we have never done before because our partners want it. And so we launched a rebound campaign that was focused on in-state at the end of August. We just generally don't market in-state ever, and that was because our partners wanted that. We are also offering 100% co-investment of match dollars. So if our partners come to the table and they want to participate in a campaign, we will match their investment. We're also seeing opportunities like this week. Today, we launched with a company out of the UK called TTG, which is a travel publication company, and we're doing Florida Fest, reaching agents there. And, this would have never been, it was a virtual festival that never would have been possible in the before times, and so I think that there's a lot of opportunities that are coming because people are looking for ways to, to reach the right audience at the right time with the right message. And I don't know, I think it's fantastic. I hope that this is something that continues even in the future as travel kind of restabilizes.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of signs that seem to point that it will continue that way. One of the things that you've all sort of touched on is that community readiness and balancing with residents and having those local regulations in place. How are you developing new creative or messaging while demonstrating that and being sensitive to your locals? How are you balancing a mask versus not, or how are you sort of showing all of that in your creative with limited resources, like you've all talked about, and limited staff? How are you sort of balancing all that together?
Well, we had to jump right in and invest the resources to capture footage that we never would have thought we would need. We just felt that it was the right thing to do. And for both balancing the needs of the residents and the visitors, to give the residents the comfort level that we were inviting people back safely, and to give the visitors the expectation of what was going to be required of them when we got here. I've been really encouraged by the research that we've seen from Miles and other sources, destination analysts and Longwoods. There's a pretty wide acceptance of people who expect to be wearing them. They feel better about destinations and have them. And frankly, that's who we want here. So the first round that I didn't show, the first round of video, we actually had to digitally insert some masks onto some really, really stable footage that we had. It looked great. I feel like a James Cameron out here. For the second round, we went out and we shot 5 locations, 3 restaurant locations, including some of the expanded seating ones and a couple of cultural attractions. And, just to prove the point, and again, back to the sort of the scarcity message, like we did have to prioritize money that might normally be going into media for production, but we work, all of our partners have been great in stepping up. But I'm actually going out again this week to shoot footage of restaurants offering to-go footage, which actually lines up with a Restaurant Week effort that we announced this fall that we've never done before, and we're going to be focusing on to-go. So we have to be really, really nimble, and we have to not be afraid to go out and shoot things on a dime, turning on a dime and shooting them on a dime, because they're not necessarily the full-fledged productions that we would normally do.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of examples of that, and I don't know, Gaten, I don't know if you want to talk to anything you guys are doing.
Yeah, we first started back, our priorities, we were trying to get visuals of people in masks, but it was so hard because it had become such a huge political issue, and especially in Kentucky. And so it's really hard. We tried to schedule some things and it just didn't work out. So we've kind of pushed that to the bottom of our list. But what we did do was we did do a fun PSA video about wearing a mask. And I dropped a link to our YouTube channel in the chat for those people who were asking, but there's a video on there. It's called Wear a Mask. And we actually shot our head football coach at University of Kentucky actually did a message for us along with some other industry partners, and we just talk about the importance of wearing a mask. And so that's where we started at. So right now, what we kind of focused now was our focus is on creating more of the staycation type of content through micro influencers, some day trip and overnight content through other in-state bloggers and other messaging to our local community, so they can kind of know what's going on with hospitality and how they can be a part of helping rebuild the Lexington community. And then in our advertising, all of our advertising goes to a landing page that says Lexington is a safe bet for travel. And on that page, while we talk about the experiences, we also are redundant on the messaging about how do you travel here safely with a mask, wash your hands, be distant, ask the hotels before you come. All that information that traveler needs is all on that landing page. And so our industry partners use it as well.
Yeah, there's a question that's come in, and I think it's probably the question, but what is the risk management, or what is your communication plan if things get out of control again and communities shut down? How are you planning to share that with visitors? How do you sort of proactively anticipate it? Whereas I think in March it was kind of caught us off guard. How do we sort of plan for that and share that if there's a substantial wave that comes into your destination?
I guess I'm up here to answer.
Yeah, your microphone's on. You have to go first.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll just, honestly, when all the regulations happened the first time around, we had 2 dedicated landing pages, one for our industry partners that had all the resources they needed, and then one for the traveling public. And we had a weekly email that was going out every Wednesday to all of our industry partners that were updating them on what's going on. And so that's really our option. We're non-member based in Lexington, so it's a little bit different for us because we have a lot of people that we have to talk to. But I mean, that's really all we can do. We can take the information that the governor gives us. He does a great press conference just about every day around 4 or 5 o'clock that the whole state follows, and whatever he gives out, that we'll just regurgitate that down and make sure that people are educated. That's just through websites, social, and emails how we've been doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump on that. I think, Sophie, that's a really good question. And I would go back to kind of like the look at the scorecard is from a brand perspective, we want to make sure that people are able to have that kind of experience that they would hope to have. And if it gets to a point where things are reversing back to where we were in March through May, where things just weren't open, we wouldn't be marketing. But the balance of that is there are people who are traveling. I mean, you're in Canada, so things are a bit different. But, in America, people are traveling, and there's, at least 25% of people whose plans have not stopped. And there's even more people who are kind of open to travel, assuming that they can do it in a safe way. And so, I think from a taxpayer funded organization, we also have to balance our responsibility to the business community and make sure that, if people are open to traveling, if businesses are open, that we're doing things in a responsible way to show that they can travel safely and that it is possible to do it. And so it is a really tough call. And it's something that we talk about probably like every week at Visit Florida, just, where is the right balance there? But ultimately we're in our positions to help the local economy and help the local businesses. And we want to just make sure that travelers can be here and can experience it safely.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to say what the role of the DMO is here. And one thing there's not a scarcity of right now is there's not a scarcity of information. And for better or for worse, and again, we've seen this in the research, a destination is going to get into the news if they're really having a tough time managing their caseload. I mean, I think Stacey can probably speak to this better than anyone for what's going on in Florida this summer, and does a good job turning that around to the extent possible. So we made the decision as a DMO not to try to track what was open and what was not open because it was changing too fast and there's just too many partners. We were counting on our partners to keep their own website and social media and Google listing information up to date. And that's even been a little bit tough to track. But I think that I kind of agree with Stacey. If this destination got so badly that we feel like we couldn't safely support our partners, we would probably just stop the advertising. But we can't stop people from coming here. And they hopefully have trained themselves as consumers to check before they even go to their local cafe for a cup of coffee. They're checking that. So if you're going to go through all the trouble of going on vacation, I would hope that you would see what is available in that destination before you start spending money there. So,
yeah, no, that's good. I think, sorry, Gaten, what's that?
Well, I was just I think Stacey made such a great point that I think a lot of marketers need to really understand is like, you have to understand that everybody has their own COVID journey, right? And like, we can't inject our own personal viewpoints on the traveling public. The traveling public still wants to travel, and we have an obligation.
Don't say inject.
Don't say inject. My bad. But
Inject.
it's true though. I mean, I think that's been the hardest part for me. As a marketer in the beginning, I was like, I'm not leaving my house at all. And I'm a fairly healthy individual. And then I got to the mindset of like, well, there's people who still want to get out and travel. So I've got to shift my mindset. And so we actually tell our staff the same thing. You all need to get out and travel so that you can see what's actually happening and understand how travel is working and understand the various viewpoints of the traveling public and what we're asking them to do.
Yeah, I think I forget the exact percentage, but once someone has taken their first trip, I think it's 80% more likely to take the next trip. So sort of getting over that initial hurdle, people are, I think, following what you're talking about and ready to go because there's that pent up demand in there about that feeling of getting away. So shifting a little bit to audiences, there was a lot over the last few years, a lot of time and resources and research put into the idea of these sort of niche audiences, be it the foodie or sort of looking really specifically at some of these audiences. How are you preserving that in this time of sort of throwing the playbook out? There may have been some things in place that were very, very micro niche almost in that mix. Are you sort of stepping away and pausing those, or are you folding that in, or how are you sort of addressing that piece? And I would add definitely not a niche audience, but sort of in the mix too. How are you weighing or tracking against international from an audience perspective? Stacey, I'll let you kind of speak to that first if you want to.
Sure. So, I mean, in a time when resources are scarce, sacrifices have to be made. And I think that that's probably some of the biggest challenges that we're going to have as marketers is, we're in the positions that we're in because we're strategically programmed to chase growth and chase opportunities and see where there's holes and where we can make a difference. And I think that, particularly for these niche audiences, it's going to be really important for every destination to decide, is that a niche that can be postponed, or is that something that can be put on hold, or is that a way for you to strategically invest in that audience to further differentiate your destination? And I think that that's going to be destination by destination experience. It's just for us, like I said before, we kind of put all of our audiences on hold to relook at, how have the traveler behaviors changed with each audience? And that research is still coming in. And so we haven't even decided kind of what happens to those niche markets. International for us, we decided that it was really important for us to keep boots on the ground internationally. But, because of the borders continuing to be closed, we haven't really invested a ton of marketing money because it would be futile until the borders really open. So we're looking at it. We're waiting and see what opportunities there are internationally. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah. Justin, Gaten, either of you want to talk to those niche audiences? The takeaway foodie?
I'll just say that our targeting has just been really broad in this campaign, and we're throwing the kitchen sink, as you saw in the spots. We try to leave no stone unturned. You're going to see food, you're going to see craft beverages, you're going to see culture, you're going to see outdoor experiences. Like everything that we list as a brand pillar, we're throwing out there because I just feel like probably those more sort of single niche audiences are, probably just wanting a vacation like everybody else, and they know that they can get these things when they travel. So that's been a decision of ours. Again, with scarce resources, we just can't chase after those long tail audiences. The international, Denver is a lot different from Florida. It's tough to get here direct, a lot tougher to get here direct, and most of those flights have been canceled. And so right now, we're just kind of working on sort of long haul or sort of long lead PR strategies to keep them updated about the destination in general. And it'll be interesting when ski season comes to Colorado, because that traditionally brings a lot of international travelers here. And so while it's not impossible to get here, it's a lot harder than it is. And we're hoping to see some of that business come into Denver.
Yeah, I would just say, just for us, we just continue to still focus on our niche audiences. Like everybody knows, when I talk about Kentucky and Lexington, I'm all about horses and bourbon. That's what we do, and I've got to maintain that, right? So we just made sure to continue to showcase those various types of virtual content really all throughout the pandemic, just as a tease to the real experience that you can actually get here in Lexington. So we've done all types of bourbon cocktail classes, education classes, horse farm tours. We even did an event where we hosted a Zoom conference call with a horse back in April when the pandemic started. So we're fortunate that our niche audiences are really perfect for this traveling season, and that we're one of the few places that can actually really own the horses and bourbon. So we're trying to double down on that. We did start developing a new brand pillar that we call Creative Culture, which kind of hits on the live arts and the live music that's been happening around Lexington in the past couple of years. And so this has kind of put a damper on us developing that. But our largest music festival got canceled. But what we did do was work with those event organizers, and we've been recording live performances of those groups at a local venue. And so every Friday night, we create Friday night watch parties on Facebook, just as a virtual extension of that music festival. And we've been doing that for the past 2 months every Friday. So that's kind of helped with that, but we're still just trying to double down on those two main pillars that we can own and still continue to own that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We have a question that's come in wanting to know if any of you, with air travel remaining somewhat of a speed bump, Justin, you talked about flights internationally, but domestically, I know this has happened as well, where they're not as regular. Have you tried partnering with any airlines, or are you working with anyone to showcase what you're doing from a safety and protocol basis, or working any matches there?
I'll jump in just because it was my buddy Chuck from Denver Broncos that asked the question. Hi, Chuck. It's sort of yes or no. We're not doing any formal partnership with the airlines. And again, I do believe that consumers, when they're getting ready to travel, are going to check in on all the safety protocols that that all the providers in the entire travel journey are going to be offering, whether it's the way you get to the airport and what you're doing in the airport and the airline and the in-town transportation. We have had conversations with several airlines, but nothing has come to pass. I think they've got bigger issues right now, just getting people to fly to begin with. It's a little bit of a problem for Denver, which we're twice as reliant on other cities in the country on air travel. So, but the connectivity Denver. So we actually are partnering closely with Denver International Airport that kind of keeps us abreast of all of the airline comings and goings as the flight cancellations have been happening. But not any individual airline. I'd love to hear if someone does.
Stacey, anything to add?
I mean, we've been talking to some airlines here and there. I think that both domestically and internationally, and I think COVID has been the great equalizer across the travel industry, and I think there's a lot of those airline partners are in very similar situations that we're in, just trying to kind of figure it out. And there's multiple people who are doing 3-4 jobs. They've lost people on their team, so we haven't had we haven't had programs actually turn into anything at this point, but I still think it's worth it. For us, we're really looking at trying to protect any sort of flights that we can, especially in advance of our the winter travel season. So that's where our conversations have been, but we don't have anything that is on the books or really planned at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add there. We're not a huge fly market at all in Lexington. We're a huge job market in Kentucky. We have one big international airport, which is in northern Kentucky, which is CVG in North Kentucky, Cincinnati area. And then obviously Louisville, which is about 60 miles west of Lexington. But our airport here in Lexington is more of a regional airport.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think before I open it up to the questions from the audience, if you guys on the call want to get ready to enter your questions, I'm going to ask each of the panelists if you feel bold to make a prediction about 2021. If you don't feel quite so bold, if you have any sort of takeaway or final thought that you want to share with the group here, I'd love to hear. Gathan, I will start with you.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll leave you with a word. And so with our staff, every year we challenge our staff to come with one word that's going to define the fiscal year. And last fiscal year, didn't know any of this was happening, but my word was actually challenge. And I said, 2020 is going to be a huge challenge for us, not knowing the pandemic was actually coming, right? And so it's actually come to fruition, not only just from the pandemic, but then from the staffing changes and all that we've had here. But I would say my biggest word for 2021 right now is agile. And so it's kind of like we've got to be able to be more agile and kind of like how we approach our marketing efforts, but we've also got to be agile and nimble about how our teams and our staff operate, in the next 2 to 3 years, as we look to rebound the meetings and events side of our industry. I know leisure is now coming back, but, meetings and events has a long way to go, especially here in Kentucky. And so we're going to have to figure out how we can move our staff around in terms of responsibilities of how they can actually help bring those two sides of the business back.
Justin, do you want to give us did you predict this as Gathan did with his challenge word?
No, I thought everyone was going to be rosy, unicorns and rainbows. I think my prediction for 2021 is that we're going to continue to focus on our core product, because I agree that the events and meetings are going to be really slow to come back next year. I think it's going to be a tough winter. And my prediction is that I think that everyone needs to be prepared for that, especially those of us who actually have, 4 seasons and cold weather months coming up, because we have not yet figured out what is going to happen with this virus as people move their activities largely inside. So I agree with the agility comment. That really should just be it, full stop, because we know we are going to have to be agile. I've seen some restaurants around here already advertising a BYOB, bring your own blanket promotion. And I think that, on the Friday, I think it was the Friday panel, Adam Sachs from Tourism Economics was on. And the other prediction I'll make is really to line up with what he said, is that coming out of this, consumers are going to feel grateful. Not in a way that's like, oh, I'm so glad you're advertising to me. I think they are going to be grateful to give someone a hug. I think they are going to be grateful to eat dinner at their local restaurant without fear of getting sick. And I think they are going to be extremely grateful when they are able to travel again. So we probably won't see the full return of that in 2021, but we're going to be moving in the right direction as people are so grateful to reconnect in person. I think that we do these Zoom and meetings with because we have to, but I don't think anybody is going to pretend that it replaces what happens when people get together in person and what's lost when we're not able to do that. And when we start to experience that a little bit more at a time, we're going to be more and more hungry for it, and we're going to get out in droves.
I hope that you are right. Stacey, are you bold with the
I was going to give some advice, and I had something prepared, and then Gathan said Zoom call with a horse, and I changed what I wanted to say. So here it is. Don't be risk averse. This is an opportunity, I think, to try a lot of things that may be a lot more out of the box than your level of comfort. In a pandemic, when there's, I think everybody, it's very easy to kind of be afraid and be paralyzed by making the wrong move. And I think that you should turn that around and look at opportunities. You don't know what's going to happen. That's what 2020 showed us. That's what last week showed us. We have no idea what's going to happen. And this is a grand time for marketers. This upended all of marketing entirely. And so you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So try it. Try a Zoom call with a horse, because that is the best thing that I have heard all week. And I know it's Monday, but I'm looking back at last week too. So thank you for that.
There's some disorientation of the passage of time, I guess, in the mix. A couple questions here. One question, Gathan, you had mentioned that you were planning about 4 months into the future. Stacey and Justin, do either of you have sort of a time frame that you're looking for campaigns into the future? How far out you're planning?
So for a winter season, which is, really Q1, and that's Florida's most important travel season, we are planning for that. So that is about, 4 months. But, I will be at eTourism Summit live in person, and, doing a talk more on how long-term strategy is dead and how it may be turning into like short-term sprints. And how do you plan for that? So, I think you're going to have to plan for that duality, that longer term approach, which is not, a year or two. It's maybe being that 4 months is now long term. And then how do you adjust your team and your tools to be able to optimize on like what is like just within the next like 2 to 3 weeks?
In 2020, we were in 2-month increments because we really started at, this is sort of not ignoring, but just not talking about the first half of the year when a lot of us were doing those local programs, because that was like 2-minute planning. But for the second half of the year, we planned in 2-month increments because our late summer in July and August is different from our September and October. And then our holiday marketing period is completely different. My hope is that for 2021, we will have an annual framework, but probably more likely a 6-month framework. And I'm hoping to plan in 3-month increments starting in January.
Okay. I think, again, Gaithan, you had talked a little bit about how you had made a video about wearing a mask with the coach at the University of Kentucky. Are there other things that you guys are doing or trying to empower your business partners to encourage mask wearing, where maybe there's mask aversion? And Gaithan, I know you had said that it wasn't particularly popular in Kentucky. I don't know if you want to add to that, or Justin and Stacey, if either of you have other information you're running, any campaigns or PSAs too.
I'll just add a little bit to it. So we actually had two different PSAs at the same time. The first one was our hashtag here in Lexington is called Share the Lex. And so the first video we actually put out was a call for locals to actually get out and experience Lexington, go to a restaurant, go to a hotel, go to a bar, go to an attraction. And it was an actual appeal. And so in that video, we talked about the importance of tourism, what it brings to the economy. Got a lot of local press out of that. It did very well locally. And so then we got behind the PSA with wear a mask. We took a fun approach to that. It wasn't a serious one. It was really a fun approach to it, to get people wearing a mask. And Lexington, it does fairly well. Kentucky as a whole is a little bit different. Like I said, because it became a political issue, you know, we have a Democratic governor and then we have a whole lot of Republican legislature. So there's always a fight at Capitol Hill. So it's just been a mess. But, you know, when we put out that video, I think it was just a way for us just to reinforce the idea that you can do this and fun and safe, and it's not really as serious as has been made out to be.
Okay.
Well, you know, it's the law in Colorado, or regulation. And so for us, there was no ambiguity in should we or shouldn't we, because you couldn't travel to Colorado without being prepared to wear one. We made some subtle changes to our marketing. We added a icon on our sort of clean and safe resource guide. We added an icon to our campaign landing page, and then we started adding a mask to some of the commercially newsletters that we were sending out, because what we decided is that we want to put that front and center. And you are either one of, you know, there's two kinds of people who don't want to wear them, people that do. And if you are someone who doesn't want to wear them, I want you to see that front and center, and you can move on to another destination. And if you are someone who gains comfort out of knowing that your travel experiences will be at a destination where that is required, we wanted you to see that as well and give you the comfort that you did. So it really did two things at once. And we didn't take it into more narrative format other than the TV spots that you saw. We just wanted to let the visuals speak for themselves.
Anything to add?
Yeah, from a statewide perspective, masks are based on a local mandate, so we're really leaning into the local destinations to be the ones to market that however they would like to. We do have information for traveler safety information on our website that then links to those local destinations, so travelers can figure out, you know, where there are mask mandates, where there are not.
Yeah. I see a comment from Sophie. You follow our news. We don't know. That I don't think we have an answer to when that will happen for our government. So I wish we did, but marketing will only take us so far. I guess one of the other questions, Gaithan, I think it's pressing on the minds of many people, is there a YouTube link to the Zoom call with the horse?
Yeah, so in that chat, if you go to our YouTube channel, I actually put that video up on YouTube last week because we entered it into a contest for something. So you'll see it's about 43 minutes long, but you'll see the whole video.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think one of the things you guys have sort of touched on, and it's not necessarily exactly within the purview here, but how are you looking to support events and sort of your meetings and events efforts in the market looking into 2021? I know there's the hybrid meeting, which will be here probably for forever based on the research. We'll always sort of have a component of this, but what are you looking at into 2021 and sort of beyond that, I would say on one hand brings the destination still to life for those who are in hybrid, and two, how are you supporting that industry looking into the future?
You know, I think it's a mixed bag, and I think it's going to continue to develop as we understand how long the restrictions exist. And again, this is also sort of market by market, but by and large, even if there's a destination that's open up for business conferences, most people are still not interested in going to them. really, you could do a whole session on what our respective sales teams are doing with their clients, because I think for the better part of the summer, most of them were busier canceling their existing meetings than they were in looking to book new meetings. And so I think I'd sort of make it akin to what we're talking about, at least in Denver, from the international perspective, is that we are just trying to keep things warm, let people know that there will be a destination that is as good as that it was before we went into this, as they come out of it, and trying to keep them updated on the sort of incremental pace of changes to our meetings mandates here. Events is, I think, is a whole different thing again, because that's a lot more consumer messaging. We're generally backing off of we're not obviously proactively recommending any events that aren't already open, but if you are like a museum exhibition, we've got a great exhibition at the Denver Art Museum on Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera, some other Mexican modernism paintings. And, we're all in with that because we know that they have figured out safety, and we know that there's a high demand there. So if it's happening, we're marketing it. If it's not happening, we're not even suggesting about when it will come back, because we just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us, I'm really thankful to our friends at Connect. They've moved all of their in-person events to Florida this year. So there's several in-person events for a variety of meeting industries, travel marketing in October and November. And I think that they're really leading the way in how to show people how events are possible. I believe it's called Safe and Clean Initiative. So, I think from an industry perspective, we should look to them as they test it out and then be able to take the learnings from what they're doing to talk about with other meeting planners. But I think that we're also going to see the typical events shift from a larger person to smaller person, especially as companies shift to more remote work. We're going to have to find ways to kind of connect people and have them have some face-to-face time. And so I think that's going to be maybe more of the direction of how events emerge in the coming years. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the event industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually just hosted one of our first conferences last weekend, 2 weekends ago. Actually, it was a photography conference that was a single hotel business, but they did the whole conference. They had sessions. They were socially distant. So we're begging them for all the content, all the photos, everything we can actually have to try to figure out how we can package that up as we talk further to our meeting planners. And I'm actually following like Branson, Missouri did a live virtual site visit. I thought was really cool. And then unfortunately, be good friends with Jeff and Visit Indy and their team. They're a really great convention destination. So I've been paying attention to what they're doing up there, and they've done a few conferences as well. So following some of the people who are leading the pack is kind of will probably dictate how we move forward as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. As we are getting close to the end, we've covered a lot of topics. Are there any of you have any sort of real final thoughts this time that you'd like to send us off with before we close out?
I want to know if you have a prediction for 2021, Laura.
I don't know that I have one that is necessarily all that different from what you guys have talked about. I would say from the meeting side, I agree with you, Stacey. I think there's a lot of changes coming. I think the hybrid of meeting is here to stay, that hybrid event. And I think the 2021 will bring a lot of creative minds behind what the DMOs will do to make the destination special for those who aren't traveling there and match that for the people who are there. I think there's some really cool opportunities yet to come and to be seen in that mix. I think also this whole sort of looking at the whole challenge that destination marketing organizations have never been more important in communities. And so I think 2021 will further show that as you lead partnerships in that way. So I guess I'd call 2021 the year of the DMO potentially in that mix, but that's what I would say.
Couldn't agree more. And the other thing, just from a practical standpoint, we're using this time to clear out a lot of garbage projects that we would not have normally done. We're cleaning out our digital asset management platform. We're clearing out our servers, SOPs, like you name it. My team has been, trying to get ahead of some of the things that we never had the time for. And I know the sales team is doing that as well, as far as, updating contacts, doing some sort of new kinds of regular sort of digital communications that just doesn't have to do with upcoming meetings. So do the spring cleaning that you kept saying that you were going to do.
Yeah. Ethan, Stacey, anything else?
No, nothing for me. Thank you.
All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank Justin, Stacey, and Gaten for your time and sharing your thoughts and insights. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for 1 o'clock, same time, for a conversation with Leah, Zeke, Jay, and Mitch, where we're going to talk all about ROI tomorrow. So thank you all again for joining us. Thank you, panelists, and we look forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.